Hi, I'm going to fully explain again how I did this painting because the original video, the sound quality wasn't that perfect. It was quite muffled, which I didn't realise at the time. So I'm just explaining again how I did the glazing on this portrait painting. At the start of it, I did some initial videos of how I started it, how I applied the colour and how I built up to this, and they can be seen on my channel. Okay, so all I'm going to be doing is glazing on this, and what that is thin layers of paint over the existing paint to enhance the tones of the hair and face. I'm not doing any fine details just yet, I'm just adjusting colour and tone. Okay, what I use is a bigger brush for this. It doesn't matter what sort of brush you use use any brush you want, the one you feel best with. It has to be really quite a soft brush as well, so bear that in mind, because you are just sort of doing a thin coat of paint, and whatever paintbrush you prefer, really, what you feel comfortable with. On the side I have some odorless mineral spirits, which is used just to clean my brush while I'm doing it. It's important just to keep your brush clean in between applications as well. Okay, so what first of all I'm going to do is tackle the hair. It needs to be darkened and more sort of contrast to it to give it some more definition, and so that's what I will be doing with that. And the layer of paint that I'm going to be using on that will be a mixture of dark umber and ultramarine blue, which comes across as a blackish sort of colour, but not quite black. And I'm going to just overlay the hair, as you see. The actual, if I move that down there, you can see that where I'm just overlaying that hair at the top there. You can't quite see it just yet, but I will be going over it a bit more, and then you'll start to see that hair sort of falling into place and to actually get some more tone to it. Again, I'm only going in one direction with this, although it looks like I'm sort of scrubbing with that brush. What it doesn't show is I am lifting that brush. I'm going in one direction, of the direction of the hair, and making sure that I don't go in different directions, because those strokes will show. So here you see I'm going a bit darker now. Here it looks dark, really dark to start off with, but that's because the paint's wet, and when it dries it will dry a bit lighter. It won't be that intense, but it will give that lovely effect of the contour of the hair. Again, look, I'm lifting the brush up and going in one direction and not up and down. I'm just going down and round, and being careful of the sort of lighter areas as well, because there are some lighter areas that I don't want to go over with this glaze. And the beauty of it is, if you do go over areas with it, you can easily wipe it off at this stage. Just get a dry cloth, a lint-free cloth I would use, and just wipe it and then start again. So, you know, it's not set in stone. If you make a mistake, you put a colour on, you think, oh no, that's not quite right, you can quickly wipe it off because the painting underneath is already dry. Okay, so I'm continuing on with the hair, as you see, and making sure that I'm still not touching those lighter areas. I just want to add some more definition to the darker areas, basically adding more contrast to it. As you know, the hair looked a bit washed out, it didn't quite look like hair, and so now I'm actually refining it by using this glaze, and hopefully you can see that. And I'm not pressing hard on it either, it's only a very soft touch that I'm using. I keep going over this hair it will dry quite quickly as well because I'm using the liquid with it. Once this layer has dried, which will probably be in a few minutes because it's really only a thin layer of paint. So the beauty of it is then I can just start working on somewhere else on the painting and then go back over this hair and then go over those glazes again. Okay. And because because it's so thin, and if I do go over that part there where it was a bit lighter, that light part still stays light compared to the rest of it, you see. So it's not actually darkening it, it still stays within the values of the painting. It's just adding more excuse me, more depth to it. So that's the way that works. And you see already the hair is looking better with just that glaze. So now I'm going to try and work on the face. Make sure that dark there first of all. Yeah, I went back over that hair, making sure there was some parts of it where I wanted a strand to stand out, which went down the face there. That's it. Yeah, it needed to pop out a bit more. And later on, there is a shadow that falls across the face where that strand is falling, and I will emphasise that as well. Because the way that the light's hitting from the left side, then there will be a shadow from that strand of hair that's falling over her face. So that will need to be shown as well. Okay, so what I'm going to actually do as well is make sure that edge of the hair there is a bit darker. That's a shadow there. Where that hair is there, where that is, that's a shadow there. That's not actually hair. So I've got to try and make sure that stays quite sharp there. Adding more. I'm just blending that part out there at the back. I wasn't quite happy with that part, so I redid it, and that's the beauty of it. That this is what I'm saying is that you can correct what you do. You can take off what you've put on and blend it out, wipe it off, and then do it again. Okay. So the next, see, that's it. I'm trying to correct it a bit more now, and make sure that that's working. Now I'm going to actually work on the tones of the face. Add more contrast to her cheeks, because her cheeks, at the moment, her face just looks flat. So it needs a bit more definition, and it needs more contour around the edges of her face and where her cheekbones are. See there? She has got cheekbones, and that's the part that I want to add a bit more definition on. So what I did here was I mixed a thin part of, I think it was a bit of burnt umber and no, sorry, that was a burnt sienna that I used on that. So sienna is like a reddish sort of brown, with it has more of an orangey tint. So that was perfect for changing the tone of this face, and it looks quite vivid at first when you put it on, but it does sort of look, at first you think, oh God, not, it looks like a clown now, but it does work out perfectly once I start putting it on, making sure that I've got the shape right on it, and then I slowly will blend that in, and give it more definition. I do use a different what I do is I use two different brushes when I'm using glazes. I use what's called a dry brush, which I'll use to um, blend the layer, and this is the drier brush now. And what I'm actually doing is it's still going in one direction, although it looks like I'm scrubbing it, but I'm actually going down in one. I'm lifting the brush and going down and blending that colour in a bit more, so it doesn't look so harsh, but still giving it that colour. Okay, let's zoom out a bit more there so you can see there. So, and this is the dry brush that I'm using now. There's no colour, there's no paint on this brush at all, and this is just used. And I'm in between, which you can't see what I'm doing. In between doing this, I'm actually wiping that brush on a rag that I've got a bit further down there. I'm just quickly wiping it, so I'm keeping it dry, but still going in one direction with this brush. Not, it looks like I'm scrubbing it, but I am lifting that brush, and it's very gentle strokes I'm using to blend it in. With this technique, you can really do good contours on the face with it, and get that definition of her cheek, which you couldn't see before. I mean, when you scroll back and you look at the original painting before I started, her face did look really flat compared to what I'm doing now with it. I mean, basically, it's like when you put blusher, when a woman puts blusher on her cheeks, she's given her cheeks more definition, and this is the same sort of thing. You know, it's making sure that that contour is there on the face. So I'll carry on with just softening that out, because I didn't want it to be too harsh on the face, and that 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 fitted perfectly. Now, while I wait for that to dry, I'm now going to add more shadow to the nose and the eye. She's got quite a big shadow, because the light's coming from the left side over. There will be a shadow on her nose, so I need to add a thin glaze to address that shadow there as well. And I was talking in the original video about wanted to darken that part there, where the part where, you know, when you suck your cheeks in, and there's that part there, that needed to be just a tiny bit darker. So I wanted to address that before I carried on, because it was one of those things that if I didn't address it there and then, I might have overlooked it. And although it doesn't seem to be a big thing, it would have been when it was finished, because it still wouldn't have looked right. So I just needed to make sure that I got that part of it right and made it just a tiny bit darker. And again, I'm using that dry brush. That brush there is a dry brush with no paint on it, and that is just blending that colour out, so it's not so dark, and she doesn't look like I've given her sideburns, because that is also the danger as well, is if you don't blend it enough, you can make it look like, especially if it's a woman, that she's got you know, a dark shadow, or hair, where, you know, hair on the face where she hasn't. So you do have to be careful with sort of with shadows on younger faces, especially, because you can quite quickly make them look older than what they actually are. Okay, so I'm still sort of blending that out with this dry brush here, and making sure I've got that right there, and it's basically just softening it out so it looks a bit better. Okay, so now what I will be doing is addressing, as I say, I was just explaining there how I've got two brushes, one dry and one wet, and I do use two different types of brushes as well, because that sort of sticks in my head that one's a wet brush and one's a dry brush, and I know that sounds silly, but when you're working it's very easy to get them mixed up, very easy, and you can quickly use the wrong brush and get yourself in a mess. So and I do tend to deliberately use different, like a round brush or a flat brush to uh, make it stick in my brain that's what I want to do. So now what I'm actually using is a ultramarine blue mixed with a tiny bit of burnt umber to do this shadow on the nose. And I'm just going down the nose, side of the nose, without touching that light on the nostril there, edge of the nostril. I don't want to lose the light edge, but I do want to make sure that the shadow is right as well. So I'm going round the nostril where the shadow would naturally fall, and then I'm going to get my dry brush and then just slightly blend that out, because I didn't want it to be a harsh edge shadow. There is hard edge to it, but the way a natural light falls, you don't necessarily get a coarse shadow there on the edge of it. So I just wanted to blend that out slightly there. And already that's given the nose a bit more prominence, and doesn't look so flat on the face. And that's how you can actually make features on the face more pronounced. Dark colours make things recede, and light colours make them pop out more. So the darker you make something, the more it recedes into the painting, if that makes sense. And obviously that works for shadows and for the inner edges of, in this case, of the eye and the nose where those meet. And I wanted to make it, as it obviously is, that there is an edge and a dip to that nose where it goes and meets the eye. Okay, so now what I'm also going to do is address that shadow of that hair that's falling down the side of the face. So I'm going to put a thin line down the side of the face where that hair, where the shadow of that hair falls, and then get a dry brush and blend it down. Because it is only a soft shadow, it doesn't need to be a harsh line, because you're in danger of, if you put a harsh line on there, it will actually look like there's a long hair actually on the face and not a shadow. But what you actually want to do is do a shadow of the hair and then blend it. And so underneath her chin needed to be darker as well. So I'm using, again, a mix of ultramarine blue and burnt umber mixed with the liquid, and doing the shadow under the chin to recede that chin and that neck, so it looks like it's going further back, and then blending that out with the dry brush again. So once I've finished doing that, I've got that. See, the rounded one is the wet brush, and I needed to make sure that I'd still got that light under there, and I'm using a mix of burnt sienna in there as well, because there is like a reddish sort of tinge to the face and under there, and I still don't want to touch the edge of the neck there, where she's slightly tilting ahead, so I wanted to make sure that that still stayed light. And I need to now address this chin, because somehow I've emphasised the shadow too much, so I need to correct that. And that's the beauty with this glazing now, is I can quickly quite correct that without making a drastic change to the painting. So I'm adding a bit of light to it and then blending that in and making sure that that isn't so prominent. See, I've added a bit more light to it just to make sure that it's not as dark as it came out. I don't know quite what I've done. Obviously, the original painting, it must have been darker there. So when I've put on a glaze, it's just overemphasised that and made it stick out a bit more. So this is the correcting stage, and this actually shows you how you can correct it without too much drama. And you don't have to sort of think, oh God, no, I spoiled it. But that's a nice way to change that. So you see, like, I've got like splodges there, and I can quite quickly get that dry brush and get that blended in, and then those paint strokes, they go away quite quickly with that dry brush now. And then I'm wiping that dry brush and making sure that I haven't got any paint on it. So I'm quickly evaluating the painting now to see like where else I need to start putting these glazes on before I continue using trying to do the finer details of the earring and the necklace. Okay, sorry about there's some colour changes on this. I hadn't quite got my colour balance right on the camera, so it's not quite right. Here is what I'm actually doing is using a tiny bit of a lighter colour that I had I put it on my finger for some reason. I thought it would be the easiest solution to do, just to make that nose stick out a bit more. And like I was saying not long ago, is that light always protrudes at anything. So anything that you want to stand out more, you lighten it up. Okay, and that's what I did with the nose. The tip of the nose is always lighter, obviously, because it sticks out more. So that's always going to be the lightest part of the face, is the nose. So I put a bit of, I think it was a mixture of white and burnt sienna in there. And because the skin tone was quite dark anyway, it stands out more. And what I would say is to never actually use pure white, because it always makes it look false, and you always get that sort of chalky appearance on a skin texture. Always mix a white with something else, and then you won't get that false look about it. Okay, so on the neck part here, I was darkening that because it needed to be a bit darker where the hair was falling. In the original photo reference that I was using, it was quite, light, because it was under extreme lighting conditions. It was like a photo shoot photograph. So I have to make allowances for that, and then add in probably a deeper shadow than what was actually shown in the photograph. And that's the trouble sometimes when you're working from photographs, is you don't actually see the true shadows, and so you have to compensate for that in a painting. And you will learn that as you go along, and what you can and can't do with a painting. And and change it from the original reference photo, and how you can make those subtle changes with the lighting. Because obviously a painting, you don't want it to be washed out, you don't want it to be a face to have an over-emphasised sort of light on it. You do want to show those shadows and to give it some more interesting effect. Again, I've added some more burnt sienna onto her forehead there on the right hand side, because it's in shadow a bit more and there's a bit more contrast there. And here, where the light's hitting on the left hand side of the forehead, I've added a mix of white and burnt sienna, which looks very, very white because obviously I've put it onto a darker part of the painting, and then I'm quickly blending that with my wet brush, which still had a bit of the burnt sienna glaze in it, and that worked with doing that blend from the original painting into this lighter part that I put in, and that gave it a natural transition. So that worked out perfectly, and when that dries it won't look as white as it is here. Oil paint always does dry a bit darker, so when you put paint on it always looks more vivid than it actually will dry out, so you have to take that into consideration as well. But I wanted to make sure that I got that light effect on that forehead there as well. And again, I'm blending that in. I'm using the wet brush with that because it needed that to blend that in with the skin colour on that forehead. So I was re-evaluating what I'd done again and having a look at it, and I needed to make sure that that shadow underneath her hair there, that wasn't hair, that was just a shadow, that needed to be refined again. Because I put that white in, I needed to do that correction there and make sure that that stood out, because it would be a core shadow, it would be a deeper shadow there, where the light's hitting the left side here, and it's blocking, that hair is blocking the light, so it would be a harsh shadow there. So I needed to refine that a bit more and add that in. Okay, so I'm hoping that this is a bit more of a clearer video for you, and I'm explaining it a bit better than I did before, and that you can hear it properly again now. And what I'm actually going to do now is add some light to the edge of the face before that shadow, just to emphasise it a bit more that there is a shadow there. So I added a bit more light there, and I'm going to add a bit more light to her chin, because that's a bit more pronounced as well. Her chin is, she hasn't got like sticking out chin, but it needed that because of the glazing that I'd used. I just needed to add a tiny little bit of light to it. So I used again the mixture that I had, which was a white mixed with a bit of burnt sienna in there. And sienna, you don't have to use sienna, but I prefer that because it is more of a richer sort of softer colour to use. Here I'm explaining that I haven't actually refined the lips yet. They still look a bit splodgy. I haven't had any real detail in those lips yet, and I will be leaving those to the end. And the same with the earring. The earring's got, it's just a splodge at the moment. I've done no refinements to that earring, and I've done no refinements to the necklace either. It would be silly for you to do any refinements before you've actually finished doing this glazing stage. Make sure you've got your tones correct and everything before you do the final touches, and make sure you've got your shadows right. I wanted to correct the hair there on the right and make that shadow a bit darker as well. So I got another brush just to put quite a dark colour in there, and make sure that that neckline there was more refined in there. So I corrected that again, and made that a bit darker, and put a little bit of more shadow in there as well, to show that her head is sort of, she has got her hair tilted a bit, you know, so that's what I needed to do, to have that shadow there as well, because the light wasn't hitting that. It needed to have a shadow there, although it wasn't actually in the original photograph. I don't know if you can see that original photograph. There wasn't much of a shadow there. I can't see it, but anyway. So then I started to add a bit more blue, ultramarine blue, to the shadow on the nose. They needed more shadow in the inside of the nose there, and around the nostril area I wanted to make that a bit darker as well, because as I was working on the rest of it, it had dried a bit and it didn't look dark enough to me, so I wanted just to go over it again, and where a smoky eye shadow there at the top, that needed to be darkened a bit more as well, so I corrected that part there. And to give that the eye socket there a bit more definition as well, and I tried to add a bit more where the cheeks suck in. If you suck your cheeks in, you've got like that indent there,